You know how our phones are supposed to get faster every single year? Well, what if the next big leap in performance isn't about raw speed at all? Today, we're diving into the brand new Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5 chip. And the really surprising reason its incredible power might actually be its biggest problem: heat.
And yeah, this single sentence from Marian Slavov over at Phone Arena, it just perfectly sums up the challenge. In the race to make our phones more powerful, we've created a very, very hot problem.
Okay, so here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll look at why this new chip is making such big waves. Then, we'll uncover the hidden cost of all that performance. We'll see a really cool head-to-head comparison between two phones, explore this new industry-wide race to cool things down, and finally, we'll ask a big question. Could a giant like Samsung be heading for trouble?
All right, first things first. There's a new champion in town. And believe me, on paper, this thing is an absolute monster. Look, this isn't just your standard yearly bump in speed. This new chip from Qualcomm is so ridiculously fast, it's actually beating Apple's latest chip in the newest iPhone Pro. And it's beating it in pretty much every test. For the first time in a long time, Apple is actually playing catch-up. That's a big deal.
But like we said, there's a catch, and it's a huge one. It's something that those flashy, short-term benchmark scores you see in all the ads, well, they don't really show you. The real enemy is kinda hiding in plain sight. It's called thermal throttling. Imagine a world-class sprinter, right? They can go all out for 100 meters, but they can't keep that pace for a marathon. They just collapse. Well, your phone's processor is exactly the same. When it gets too hot from working hard, it has to slow itself down to avoid damage. It's just a fundamental law of physics inside these tiny, slim devices. And nothing shows this problem better than this next example. We're going to look at what happens when you take this exact same super powerful chip and you just stick it inside two totally different phones. So, in one corner, you've got the Red Magic 11 Pro. Think of it like a souped-up gaming PC that's been shrunk down into a phone. It has this insane cooling system, even a tiny little fan that spins like a jet engine. And in the other corner, the Nubia Z80 Ultra. It's a beautiful, sleek flagship phone. Kind of like the one you probably have right now. It uses a normal passive cooling system. No fan, no fancy stuff. So what happens when you really push these two phones to their limit? Thanks to that crazy cooling setup, the Red Magic gaming phone managed to keep up an amazing 80% of its top performance during a long, heavy stress test, which, let me tell you, is really, really good. Okay, but here is where it gets wild. Just look at this chart. Look at the massive difference. The Nubia, it just nosedives down to 48% stability. We're talking less than half. And remember, it is the exact same chip inside both phones. So, without all that extra cooling, the chip just couldn't keep up. It got so hot that performance was basically cut in half. And the phone got physically uncomfortable to hold. The internal temperature was hitting over 50 degrees Celsius. That's 122 Fahrenheit. Yikes. Okay, so here is the real kicker. This is probably the most important part. When you put it under pressure, this brand new, super fast chip, it can actually end up being slower than last year's model. Just look at these numbers. The Nubia's lowest score is way behind a phone with the older Gen 3 chip, and it's even slower than an older chip in a super thin foldable phone. That's crazy. So this isn't just about one phone or one chip, right? This whole situation points to a much, much bigger trend that's happening across the entire industry. It's not just about speed anymore. It's a pretty simple cycle, really. Every year, the chips get way faster. But faster means more power. And more power means, you guessed it, more heat. But our phones aren't getting any bigger. All that heat gets trapped, and the phone has no choice but to slow down. So this obsession with raw speed has accidentally kicked off a whole new battleground, the race for better cooling. And hey, it's a really big deal when even Apple starts talking about it. For the first time ever, they're putting a vapor chamber, which is a fancy cooling system that uses evaporating liquid to move heat away into the new iPhone. They even use the phrase sustained performance in their big announcement. When Apple starts talking about cooling hardware, the rest of the industry is sitting up and taking notes. All right, so all of this brings us to one of the biggest players in the game, Samsung. And there could be some serious trouble brewing on the horizon for their next big phone. Yeah, if you're a Samsung fan, this number right here, it's not great. The current Galaxy S25 Ultra already has issues with heat, managing only 46% performance stability in the same test. Think about that.
That's even worse than the Nubia phone we just saw, which already had a huge throttling problem. So this sets up a huge challenge for the next Galaxy, the S26. First, it's probably going to use this new super hot Snapdragon chip. Second, Samsung always gets these special 4 Galaxy versions of the chip that are cranked up to be even faster. Which means, yep, even more heat. And that right there is the billion-dollar question that Samsung's engineers have to be asking themselves right now. Is this special chip going to be a win for Galaxy? Or is it going to be too hot for Galaxy?
So what's the big takeaway from all this? Well, those huge benchmark numbers you see in ads, they're great for headlines, but they're not the whole story, not even close. The real test of a phone's power isn't just how fast it can go for a few seconds, it's how long it can stay fast. So the next time you're looking for a new phone, maybe the first question shouldn't be how fast is it, but how well does it handle the heat? Thanks for tuning in.